In Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, Viceroy Gunray reports to Darth Sidious that Queen Amidala's ship has slipped past the blockade. He says, "One Naboo cruiser got past the blockade. It's impossible to locate the ship. It's out of our range." Sidious responds, "Not for a Sith." With that, he signals his apprentice, Darth Maul, to step forward. What Gunray sees as an impossible task is nothing more than an opportunity for Maul to demonstrate the true power of the Sith. As Darth Maul reflects in his journal, "The Sith have many methods of tracking, some of which I cannot reveal, even in my own journal. Connection traces, instinct, logic, bribes, our own brilliance. Our resources are many. Our range is as vast as the galaxy. My master has shown me time and again that there is nothing too small to escape his notice, no system far enough out of reach, no ship that can't be found if you have the patience and cunning to look." Darth Maul's first major move in tracking Amidala comes through a carefully orchestrated counterfeit message from Sio Bibble, the governor of Naboo. Maul scavenged holographic data tapes to replicate Bibble's likeness and voice, piecing together a fragmented message. Bibble's simulated likeness urgently says, "The death toll is catastrophic. We must bow to their wishes. You must contact me." Maul's plan was simple: transmit the message and establish a connection trace to pinpoint the location of Queen Amidala's starship. He routed the transmission so it would appear to come from the royal palace on Naboo, then waited. This transmission is designed to look like a desperate plea for help. It warns Amidala about the growing crisis on Naboo, urging her to contact Bibble immediately. The Sith know that Amidala is deeply connected to her people and would likely respond to any plea for help from her planet. Though Obi-Wan Kenobi immediately cautions the Queen about the potential danger of the transmission, simply receiving the signal may have still provided Maul with valuable tracking data. This is where the Sith's skill in deception and technology comes into play. Once Amidala's ship receives the transmission, it leaves behind a faint trace. In Darth Plagueis, we learn that this message wasn't just a random plea. It was part of a larger plan by Maul to track the Queen. The transmission was deliberately designed to send out a detectable signal, one that the Sith could follow to a specific location. The exact details of how this works aren't fully clear, but it seems that when the transmission was received, it triggered a subtle response from Amidala's ship, a kind of confirmation pulse. While this pulse would be almost impossible to detect by most, the Sith, with their expertise, would be able to use it to narrow down the location. It's a technique that's not perfect, though, as Maul himself notes, if the trace was correct. This could also explain why Qui-Gon warned against sending more transmissions. He knew the risks of being tracked by such signals, but he likely didn't anticipate that a Force-sensitive being like Maul could detect something so subtle. There's a contradiction between the novels. In Wrath of Darth Maul, not only does Maul's transmission leave a trace, but he also receives a direct response from Amidala's ship. The reply confirms that the Queen is safe and will be returning to Naboo. In contrast, Darth Plagueis only mentions the trace and focuses on Maul tracking the signal, without any mention of a response. So, the real question is whether Maul ever got confirmation that Amidala was safe. Wrath of Darth Maul shows a more immediate interaction, while Darth Plagueis leaves that part out. When Darth Maul arrives on Tatooine, he wastes no time. He immediately begins his search for the Jedi, but Tatooine's vast, desolate landscape, dotted with small settlements, makes it a tough planet to search. Maul starts by using his electro-binoculars to scan the surface. From a high vantage point, he spots the distant lights of the cities. As night falls, it becomes clear to him the Jedi are on Tatooine. He just doesn't know exactly where yet. Using his sharp instincts and calculating mind, Maul enters the necessary data into the control panel on his forearm, setting up systems to track the Jedi through their Force presence. It doesn't take long before he's honing in on their location. Jedi, with their strong connection to the Force, leave a unique signature that makes them easier to find. Once the parameters are set, Maul releases his probe droids. These small, spherical machines float out from his ship, one after another. They zoom toward the cities Maul has marked, ready to search for his prey. Maul can control up to 6 of these droids remotely, using a comlink on his wrist. But the droids aren't completely dependent on him. They've got their own intelligence and decision-making skills, allowing them to act on their own when needed. In Wrath of Darth Maul, the first probe droid spots a tall, bearded man with a lightsaber at the Mos Espa Grand Arena, right after a pod racing competition. But the second probe droid doesn't have the same luck. It's destroyed before it can even transmit an image of a light freighter called the Dusty Duck. The third probe droid, however, manages to locate Amidala's starship, hidden away in the remote Zelric drawer. Later, after Qui-Gon Jinn's free Anakin Skywalker, they return to Amidala's starship. As they approach, Qui-Gon notices something unsettling, an unfamiliar droid watching them from an alley. Without hesitation, he destroys it with his lightsaber. But how did Qui-Gon know the droid was a threat? It's infused with a dark aura in the Force, something Qui-Gon could sense. As described in the Phantom Menace novelization, Qui-Gon's Jedi instincts immediately warned him of the danger. He felt a disturbance in the Force, a dark weight pressing in, disturbing the natural balance. Darth Maul's probe droids were incredibly advanced, packed with a range of high-tech sensors as detailed in the new Essential Guide to Droids. These sensors could process all kinds of data: audio, visual, thermal, chemical, electromagnetic, and even radionic, allowing the droids to scan and locate targets over huge distances and across all types of terrain. But what really set these droids apart was their ability to detect the Force itself. They weren't just scanning for physical things. They could pick up on midi-chlorians. This meant the droids could sense Force-sensitive individuals and even detect unusual Force activity in the environment, making them invaluable for tracking Jedi or anyone else attuned to the Force. The data collected by the droids was translated into a radiant blue nimbus, a glowing visual representation of a person's Force aura. These probe droids weren't just spies. They were equipped with an arsenal of weapons, laser cannons, stun blasters, and poison dart needlers, making them lethal in the field. And if they ever ran into trouble or failed their mission, they had a self-destruct function, ensuring they wouldn't fall into enemy hands. When the first probe droid came back with its report, Darth Maul found out that a Jedi had left Mos Espa and was heading toward the Queen's ship. He didn't waste any time. He hopped onto his speeder bike and headed straight for the coordinates the droid had given him. The ship was still there, just sitting in the desert, glinting under the sun, even though it was covered in dust. The ramp was down, which meant the Jedi was definitely going aboard. As Maul got closer, he spotted 2 figures running toward the ship, a young boy and Qui-Gon Jinn. Maul pushed the speeder harder, trying to reach them before they could get to the ship. Qui-Gon shouted at the boy to drop. The kid obeyed instantly, and Maul's speeder passed right over him. But the kid wasn't the target. Maul's focus was solely on the Jedi. He jumped off his bike and activated his lightsaber in midair. Qui-Gon was ready, though. He met Maul head-on with strong defense, moving with precision. Maul could feel it. This Jedi wasn't just quick. He could predict Maul's moves. So, Maul dug deeper into the dark side, pushing faster, harder, trying to overwhelm him. But Qui-Gon wasn't backing down. Then Maul saw the ship starting to lift off. The ramp was still down. He tried to stop it, but Qui-Gon used the chance to leap right onto the ramp as it started to rise. Maul stood there, watching the ship vanish into the sky. He had tracked Queen Amidala all the way there, but the Jedi had slipped away at the last second. For the first time, Maul tasted failure.